Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. I'm not going to lie. One of my favorite things is when I see my guest speakers jam into my intro song.
I know. It's got like a good energy. I'm like, okay, this is good.
I love it. For those of you that are jumping on live now, we appreciate you being here and supporting Nichole, her journey, and the Her Version platform. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. So today I am hanging out with Miss Nichole Howard. Nichole is everything you would want in a professional photographer. She is creative and passionate about her work, but this picture perfect life was not always so picture perfect. Divorced parents, experimentation with drugs early in life led to a really low GPA in her first attempt at college, along with a whirlwind of other things that life has thrown at her. Nichole has proven to have resilience and drive, graduating school with her master's degree and becoming a sensation in the world of photography. She is now helping women find their voice through pictures, empowering branding and showcasing storytelling through the camera lens. We are excited to know more. Welcome, Nichole.
Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to be connecting with all the amazing women that are part of your community. Honestly, it's so beautiful what you've built.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that. We're on the way up, as they say, and we're continuing to grow, continuing to expand, and continuing to involve women like yourself who've gone through some shit, gone through a little bit of stuff, and you didn't let it bring you down. You didn't let it, dig a little hole in the ground.
I love that.
Yes,
it's so
you're out.
important.
You're doing inspiring work within the community, and I love women like you who are open to sharing a little bit about some of the stuff they've gone through in order to help inspire other people who are possibly going through some stuff themselves and are feeling like shit. Just feeling like shit.
Exactly. I mean, everybody goes through stuff. That's the thing I've learned. It's funny. I feel like everybody has a story. Everybody has some kind of hardship that they've gone through. If you've gotten through this life unscathed, I want to meet you. I can get maybe take up some of that luck. I don't know what that is, but
yes.
I feel like, and sometimes you just have to remember you're not alone. So I love that. That's my goal is just anybody who experienced anything that I've experienced, or just like you've shared the other stories from other women who experience what they've gone through. I think it's just so important to just remind others, hey, you're not alone. We're all living it and just trying to do our best every day.
100%. 100%. I like that you're saying that, as far as we all go through stuff, and it would be weird if you didn't. And I think, the reason this channel is doing so well and growing so rapidly is because there's this kind of unspoken genre actually in the industry you're in of pictures. And a lot of times we're viewing the world through this social media thing, and we're thinking that our neighbors or our, the society that we're in and around, our little circle, isn't having their own stuff that they're dealing with because they're seeing one or two pictures going up. And one of the things that I like to reiterate is, social media, 100%. But if you go through anybody's photo album that is not on social media, they're all pictures of happiness. That's what it is. My parents didn't pull out the camera when we were having a bad day. They pulled out the camera for awesome events. We're all smiling. We're all happy. So all this is just people's photo albums online the same way my mom has a photo album of us in her closet somewhere.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
it's really important to, have these real conversations sometime and say, yes, of course we're taking happy, awesome pictures. That's what we've been doing forever.
Absolutely.
And we're still going through stuff.
Right. It's all, life is a mix of all the emotions, right? You don't just get happy ones. You don't just get joyful ones. You get hard ones. You get sadness. You get anger. We're built. I mean, one of the things actually I've learned recently, and one of the things that I've continued to do to help me get over some of the struggles is personal development. And what I've learned is like just accepting that we're humans and we have this wide range of emotions is like half the battle, right? Like you just don't always have to be happy all the time, right? There's a whole other range for you and we're born with it and that's okay. Like I think some of that too is accepting it so you can get back into a place where you feel better because like sometimes I spend so much time resisting like I don't want to be angry because like what does that mean about me if I'm angry? What does it mean about me if I'm sad? It means absolutely nothing. It means that you're human.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited for this conversation. Very cool. All right. Well, we're going to dive into all of that. So awesome. I love that we're on the same page. I do want to start out before we actually dive into some of that stuff. Is kind of just give us a rundown of childhood, teenage, coming, some of your journey that you've been on up until today. And then we'll run through some questions and pull some nuggets of inspiration from you and kind of go from there. Is that cool?
Yeah, I love it.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so all right, the story, right? This is so, and please do stop me because I started to write my story down just because I was like, all right, like where do I want to start? Like, I mean, you don't realize, like, right, all the things that have influenced you in your lifetime to get to where you are. But I think for me, one of the most memorable things that happened really young. When I was around 5 years old, my parents divorced. And I didn't realize like that changed the trajectory of my entire life. So just all of the events that followed after that, like interestingly enough, that same year that my parents divorced, my grandfather died. And I was really close to him apparently. Again, like I was 5. So like how much do you really remember? But like those vivid, impressionable years, right? All of these really tumultuous things are happening. Now, granted, like I say that with a grain of salt because I realized I grew up with a lot of privilege. I obviously lived in a very safe neighborhood, and I'm very grateful for that. So there were other influences there, but like there were some really big things happening really young in life that really kind of had an effect on me as I got older. So basically, and they also moved me out of school. So like at 5 years old, I changed schools, grandfather died, and my parents got divorced. So I was like, what is happening in the world right now? Super confused, felt really unstable. And then just kind of as I was growing up, like my dad, he kind of wasn't around as much. My mom really raised my sister and I. And again, I think it's important to kind of give credit where credit's due, right? Like my parents were both 25 when they had my sister and I. Like I can't imagine being 25 with 2 kids. So, and they had their own stuff they were going through. But I mean, I definitely think they didn't really have like a good relationship until I was in my 20s. Like they weren't really in the same room together. Like other than my dad picking us up every other weekend for his scheduled visitation, they weren't in the same room together until it was my graduation.
Wow.
That's like something to say right there, right? Like they could not be together. And even at one point, my dad lived across the street from us, but my sister and I only saw him on our visitation weekends across the street, like right there.
Wow.
So, and then thinking about that now, I'm like, that's so strange. But at the time, like, I didn't question it because I was a kid and I didn't really understand. And, both of my parents worked really hard. My mom was a single mom, so she was always like working really hard. My dad, I think he dipped into his work a lot. He got remarried to a lovely woman. But again, and she's been amazing as well. But it was just the dynamic was very, very much like we see you when we're scheduled to see you. And if we don't see you, then we don't see you. And I think it had like a weird effect on my psyche and my worth and my value and what I came to accept from other people as well. And I think it definitely like led into some of the things I got into as I was older, because I wasn't really, the thing is too, like they didn't really have time for us to go into sports, right? So I wasn't involved in any sports. I, the time, effort, money required was just like, nope, sorry. So like I had all this time on my hands as a kid, and I just like felt a little amiss, and felt like, nobody really had like the energy for me. So I kind of like had this weird dissonance of like wanting to belong really desperately, and then also wanting to escape.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's where like the drugs experimentation came in, and sex, drugs, alcohol kind of came into play, because I think it gave me a place, right? I felt like I could fit in there and I could do that, and like it didn't have to be good at that, right? Because the other thing too is my grades were always up and down, so I was always somebody who had to try. Like I was always somebody who, if I didn't put in like the extra hour studying, I didn't do well on the test.
Yeah.
So I went through many years where like I had to be tutored in math, I had to be tutored in reading. And I hate to say it, I felt stupid. Like I felt like I was not smart. And I didn't have to be smart to do drugs. In fact, I could just be an idiot. So,
And be really good at it.
and be really good at it and have a really good time.
Yeah.
And so I know it sounds awful, like looking back, but it was like this escape route, and also made me feel really connected. And I think, I didn't realize how detrimental that was. And, the decisions I was making, how dangerous they were, because I honestly didn't care. Like I just didn't care. I had no desire. So I think, it wasn't until I was 19, and I got in a really bad car accident, totaled my car in the middle of the night. And like, if people know the area, it was like in backwoods Pennsylvania. And I was like, it was like a wake up call for me. And I was like, what am I doing? Like I felt like I lost my freedom. I lost my car. Like when I woke up the next day, I was like, what did I do? Like, oh my gosh. So it was a really big wake up call for me. And I started to shift a lot in my life. So I know there's like questions that you have, so I don't know how much deeper I want to go into the shift, but that's what kind of got me there. It was like this really kind of, like again, well, I had always had a roof over my head. I lived in a safe neighborhood. I actually lived in a pretty affluent, upper, like I'm gonna say upper class, but like middle class, like well-to-do middle class community. And I obviously had white privilege and those things associated with that. I I definitely struggled. I mean, I grew up in an apartment in the middle of actually a lot of really beautiful houses, which is really weird. So I think for me, it was just, yeah, I never felt like I belonged or fit in. And I think my parents were always just kind of really young, not really ready to have kids or had kids, and didn't really know what to do with us. And so it kind of led to me feeling like I had to find my own place to belong. And I made some poor decisions because I didn't really know what I was doing.
Yeah.
So
How did you wind up realizing this creative side that you have?
So it was interesting. My grandmother, who was always a positive influence in our life, that is somebody who's stable. So I actually think about, there were a couple influences who were always really lovely for my sister and I. She encouraged us. So she was always like, you should explore, drawing. And she always had like all these things prepared for us if we would go to her house, like markers and paints and all this stuff. And she was amazing. Like she played organ, like the piano organ. She played golf. She played bridge. She had this really beautiful life, and she encouraged us to be curious about the different things that really interested us. And so even though my sister and I like weren't involved in like sports or anything like that, we did have this creative side, but that wasn't really as embraced as much in other areas of my life other than that safe space.
Wow. And
Yeah.
how did that turn into photography?
So actually, when I was 30, I got my first camera, and it was actually a gift from my ex-husband. But it was a life changer for me because I always knew I wanted to invest in a camera, or I want to say DSLR, but for those who don't know what that is, it's just like a fancy camera. It was something I really wanted. I kind of always saw things in pictures, if that makes sense. Like I was always the person taking pictures at the parties, or I was taking pictures, just walking on the street on my iPhone. So for me, getting like a real nice camera was always a goal, but I never took the money I invested in myself because I worked in nonprofits. I mean, that was a whole other part of my story going through college and then finding a career that actually paid well was really challenging for me. I felt like I needed to fit in a certain 9 to 5 box. Um, but getting that camera changed my life. Like I feel like it was opened a door to a whole world I had no idea that I loved as much as I do, and that
Wow.
I'm actually pretty good at.
Wow, that is so cool. Did you jump in right away as far as I'm a photographer or
So I started out just walking around and taking like street photography in Philadelphia. So I spent about 12 years living in Philly. So after I basically kind of went through that kind of weird upbringing where kind of felt amiss, was experimenting with things that were, not the best, got in the car accident. I actually changed schools, started applying myself in school, actually trying. And I moved into Philly and went to Temple. And so I stayed there for like about 12 years. And so walking around Philly with my camera, I saw all this inspiration and these things I wanted to capture. And at the time, Instagram was actually a photo sharing app, very different than what it is today. And I would share my pictures on Instagram. And I got a lot of interest. People were like, this is beautiful. I really love this. And I was surprised. I was really shocked because I wasn't expecting that. And so I kept doing more of it. I was like, this is great. It's something I love. And it seems to be giving back to the community in a positive way because people are enjoying it.
yeah.
So I'm going to continue to do it. And then I was featured in a local magazine. And then I had a couple local businesses reach out to me and say, hey, I love the work you took. Like I took a couple pictures down in Stone Harbor of like a Christmas setup for a hotel down there and just like posted it. And they were like, hey, we would love to use this photo in our advertisements for like the holiday season. And I was like, sure, that's amazing. Of course. So it was kind of like this light bulb moment of like, oh my God, I can actually do something I love as a career. Right. But that started, God, so that was about 7 years ago. So, we've worked over 7 years getting to the point where I'm at now where I am a full-time photographer. But yeah, it was really interesting, the evolution of how it happened. And then starting to get into portraiture work and exploring what that looked like. And then really getting to a point where it wasn't just a side hustle anymore. And it was a part-time job and then it was a full-time job. So it's kind of just slowly evolved over time. That was a long-winded answer to your question.
What were you doing between 20 and 30? What did you wind up getting into?
Whew. So that was around the time when I started therapy. So I got in the car accident at 19, 20, right around then. And I basically enrolled into a new school, went to community college. I said, you know what, I'm just gonna figure out what it is I want to do or what I even like, right? Like I just kind of like reset because I was enrolled in Penn State and I was, really not paying attention to my grades at the time. And, that's where that first attempt at college, like I didn't do well. I really didn't because I didn't try at all. And I really didn't believe in myself. So getting in the car accident, starting therapy, enrolling in a new school, those were big monumental changes. And then I essentially ended up getting a 4.0 at the community college. So it's like I went from being like failing to like 4.0, got into Temple, and then got my undergrad in psychology. Went to work for Planned Parenthood for 4 years because I really believed in women's access to healthcare. It's really important, and it's something that isn't focused on a lot. And then still working actually multiple jobs at the time because it is a nonprofit. And while it was a full-time job as a counselor, it only paid like $12.67 an hour. So I was like still serving in the city and working restaurant jobs to just kind of stay afloat. At 25, moved back in with my mom. She was remarried at the time, still is. Steve is amazing. Just again, regrouped. I was like, okay, what am I going to do now? Decided to go back and get my master's degree and I also got a job at the hospital University of Penn at the time as an executive assistant. And that helped me get my master's because they helped me pay the way to get my master's. And then also gave me a lot of confidence working in that role and exploring some different things in that position. Things like from everything from fundraising to project management and process mapping and all kinds of things that I really didn't even realize I was capable of. And then that got me to so basically I graduated with my master's by 30. Got married at 30 because I also met my ex-husband at that, like around 28. And yeah, I felt like my life was on a certain path, right? Like I was like, okay, like I'm married. I, did the things. I 2 years later, I bought a house. We bought a house together, got married. I had my master's degree, and I felt like, okay, everything's coming together. It's all like happening. And then I hit another road bump where, we got divorced. Because I realize now, like, we weren't the right fit for each other, but that's okay. And I kind of had to rebuild again. So it's like this constant, like, okay, like build it up, experiment, and then like rebuild a little bit and learn a little bit more about myself. And at each juncture, I've learned more and more and more about who I am and what I have to offer the world and what the world really has for me to experiment with and learn from. So.
Yeah, definitely. What do you think is the biggest challenge?
The biggest challenge?
What do you think? What do you think is the biggest challenge? And then what did you learn from that challenge?
So for me, I would say the biggest challenge was going through divorce twice. Yeah, I think as a kid and then again as an adult. And I think I learned from both of those experiences that it doesn't have to define me. Even though there is shame associated with it and fear, anxiety, and some really negative emotions, some beautiful rebirth can come from it too. Mm-hmm. And it helped me learn that I can do a lot just on my own. Like I'm a very capable person, even going through hard things.
Do you think you got married just to get married?
No, I think I really felt like he was somebody who was at that time. I felt like he was the person for me. Okay. Like I really do. And I'm like, it is hard because nobody gets married to get divorced. I say that all the time. Like nobody's like, yeah, this is why I'm doing this, and you don't think you're checking a box. You don't think it. In fact, I personally was like, I'm not doing that. In fact, I waited until my 30s. I was like, I didn't even do it in my 20s. I thought I skipped that whole process. I was like, I did it right.
Yeah.
But, I think a lot of times, you grow as a person, and I'm pretty dedicated to self-development and growth. And sometimes you realize that you're on a path the other person isn't on, and it's just not going to work anymore. There were some things too in that relationship. He was, he had some insecurities. He had a lot of insecurities and a lot of jealousy and things that he needed to work through. And, he wasn't as dedicated, at least explicitly from what I saw, to his own personal development process. And
do you think that hinders a relationship when one person is really leveling up as a human and the other person's just kind of chill?
I think it's really hard. I think because there's interpretations, right? So I think that he may have thought in his life that he was doing the things he needed to do. And I felt like I was doing what I needed to do. I mean, for me, I really felt like I've always been really committed to personal development since having the experiences that I had. And then how much it's helped me. I was like, that for me was transformational. So like, there's not going to be a part of my life where it's not critical or it's not something that I continue to work on. So I think that I realized that you can't change a person. He's going to be who he was. And as challenging as that was, I mean, I just don't think, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think it's really hard to say because I think there's so many like philosophies out there for me. Like I didn't think I could change him, so that's kind of why it ended.
Yeah.
But and I didn't think he was on a journey to wanting to change himself. So
yeah, I think there just comes a point sometimes where you sort of grow out of people,
yeah.
not even just relationships, but just grow out of relationships,
1000%.
all kinds of relationships.
I have such admiration for people who are in long-term relationships for 25 years, 30 years, 50 years, who have gone through those ebbs and flows and yet managed to stay connected. Like, I feel like that is a definite, that is not easy. And I still don't know the secret. Like, and nobody, everybody's like, "Oh, it's your best friend." I'm like, but they're not always your best friend. Sometimes you're kind of pissed at them. Like, like, you know, I don't know if that's it.
Yeah, definitely. That's so funny. Speaking of personal growth and self-development, what is your thought process as far as the importance of that? Do you think that that is something that's kind of necessary for us?
Yes, 1000%.
Yeah.
1000%. If you've gone through any hardship in your life, doing personal development, doing the work, right? That's the work. And it doesn't always have to be hard. It just is, you have to be willing to like take a look at what's going on inside. Like, for me, like, I think the thing I've learned is that if I understand myself, what incentivizes me, what distracts me, what triggers me, what motivates me, like, that's so important, because I'm truly the only person I have the ability to control or change. You can't do that for anybody else around you. You have to take care of your own yard. You have to take care of your own garden in your brain, right? You can't do it for somebody else. You can influence that, and they may see you. I guess this goes back to the question about up-leveling. They may see you up-leveling and be influenced by you and be inspired by you, but you cannot willingly look at them and change them.
Yeah.
Right? You can only do that for yourself. So yes, I believe personal development is critical, especially if you've gone through any kind of hardship. And anybody who just lived through 2021 and 2022, that means all of us, right? So, like,
yeah, 100%. Did you do that on your own, or did you go therapy or coach? What did you do? Read a book?
Okay, my journey, like I said, started when I was 20. It took me a little while to find the right therapist. So I want to stress that's really important. You have to find somebody who you can feel safe enough around to trust and open up, that they will let you release and hold that space, right?
Yeah.
I was blessed that my mom actually connected me to the first therapist that was extremely helpful for me.
Wow.
So, like, it was a real gift. She went through her own personal development journey, right? Like, so she went from being this person who, you know, raised 2 daughters on her own, for the most part, and then kind of struggled, lived in an apartment. We lived in an apartment together. Like, I shared a bedroom with my sister until I was like 16, like, or maybe a little longer, to now living in a house with like a beautiful backyard with a pool, owning 2 horses, right? Having a 6-figure career. Like, she has done such a 180.
Wow.
Overcoming anxiety and depression, like, still struggling, right? Because it's like, it's not lateral, like, it's not this, right? It's not like you just go up and up and up, up. It's this. It's like it's a wave, right?
Yeah.
But like, she's learned how to ride it. And I think that was a huge influence on my sister and I mean, I'll speak for myself, like, for me. And yeah, so definitely like finding a therapist, and then ongoing like books are huge. Like, even just like some coaching books. Jen Sincero is an amazing author. If you haven't read You Are a Badass, please go out and buy that book immediately right now and go read it. It's an easy read. I read it in like a day. It's incredible. Or get the audiobook and
I did audio.
So amazing. Like, she is just like the #1 hype woman, and just like reminds you to shatter all of those things, all those doubts and fears and awful things we think about ourselves and the judgment that we put on ourselves. She's so beautiful at talking about that. Carol Dweck is another one. Talks about growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Amazing.
Carol, I don't know who that is. Carol who?
Carol Dweck.
Dweck.
Oh my God, she is incredible. So she has a TED Talk too. And I can't remember the name of the TED Talk, but her book is called Mindset.
Awesome. That's one of the things I'm trying to get in the groove of, because a lot of my mentors that I follow are men. And I've recently come to the realization, breaking through limiting beliefs, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit, of men are more successful than females. It's kind of like one of the things that I'm really trying to get over, as far as breaking through my own barriers and shattering my own belief systems. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, maybe I should start to follow more successful females.
I have a list for you. Sabrina, I have a list. Like, okay, like I will put it in the comments so everybody can look. Because like that is who I gravitate towards. Right? Like that is my true north right now. It's like, where are the I can't even say it, successful females? Like the boss babes, I don't care what you call them, but like I want to emulate that. So like, yes, I know tons. I'm happy to recommend.
You know why it started like this? So for me, my story.
Yeah.
This is your story, but since we're on this subject,
let's talk about it.
I Googled probably like 10 years ago when I was in a really shitty spot. I was looking for inspiring stories, and I just did one Google search that said like most inspiring speakers or something like that. And it was men.
Tony Robbins.
Yeah, of course. But like men, it was like, I took a screenshot of it actually way back in the day. I don't know if I still have it, but it was like 57 men and then finally one woman that I had never even heard of. It was crazy. Yeah. So what I did at that point is I started at the top and I started listening to all these men. And I said, what are they doing that obviously these women aren't doing in this sector where Google is saying that these are the most inspirational speakers on the planet?
So what are they doing?
So that's what I said. Well, first of all, they're way more aggressive. They speak, they tell their story a lot more, which is why we love those stories. But,
I love that.
Yeah. So for some, I don't know. I mean, that's just what I noticed. I wasn't comparing. I literally just dove in, just number one, what the fuck are you doing? And I just started like really trying to pull out and emulate exactly what they're doing within my own community that I am building here.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until probably like a few months ago, I was on an impact panel and the lady, we were talking about limiting beliefs of some sort. And I was like, I need to freaking change that up a little bit, because that's probably influenced me a little bit and may even be keeping me at a little bit of a plateau, because all I'm listening to is men without necessarily realizing that I was doing that to myself,
Yeah.
So definitely something that I'm being more conscious of now. I have read Jen's book, or I listened to her audio, the whole thing. I actually listened to it twice, but yeah, I need more. So I've grabbed a lot of stuff on Oprah. Barbara Cochran is like my idol.
Ooh, I don't know her, so I would love to learn about her.
Barbara Cochran is on Shark Tank. She's the older woman with the short hair. Her story is similar to my story. So ran a whole business with her husband in real estate. Her husband started screwing the secretary. Once they're like millionaires, like they're freaking just. So they get divorced, still running the company together. She just couldn't handle it anymore, like seeing her and him and this whole thing. So she broke off, and her husband told her, "You'll never make it."
Wow.
And that's my fucking.
She's like, guess what? Guess what? I will. How about that? Let's try that.
Yeah, that's my story. And now she just blew up in real estate, like crazy. So she's like, and I've had her story for a while, and she's one of the people that I really try to emulate with that. It's more of a negative, but sometimes you need that. Sometimes there are negatives.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that though. I mean, like I said, knowing what motivates you, what inspires you, what triggers you, right? That's all the stuff that's important, so you know how to take action in your life to create what you want to create. Right? That's all the juicy stuff. That's why personal development is so important. So if it works for you, use it.
Definitely. Yeah, but I would so appreciate a list if you got like a top 5.
Oh, I got you. Oh, I have like the top of my head. I'm like, okay, Brene Brown. I mean, I'm sure you've probably heard of her by now. Glennon Doyle. amazing. Her book Untamed, another life changer. Like probably one of my top 3 books of all time, if not number 1. Elizabeth Gilbert, really love her. Her story is really interesting. Her book, Big Magic for Creatives, is incredible. How to live a creative life beyond fear. Really good, really juicy. She wrote the book Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Elizabeth Gilbert. So really good, another good one. And then, so who else? I actually just read, and it's a podcast I follow called Earn Your Happy. Lori Harder, she's wonderful. So she actually wrote a book called A Tribe Called Bliss about how you basically fill your life with people who are going to really support you in your goals and your dreams versus kind of maybe not support you or not really be there, the way you want them to show up. And it helps you work some of your own personal stuff too. I mean, I have a few others. Those are just a couple.
Yeah, it's great.
I can just think of off the top of my head. Yeah. And Carol Dweck, Mindset. Oh my gosh, so good.
Yeah, I wrote that one down. That's the first one.
Yeah.
That'll jumpstart me because I had this conversation like a month or 2 ago on an impact panel, and I still didn't. So that's kind of like a little kick in the ass right there.
Well, like it's
a little kick in the ass. So
no, I get. It's funny though because I'm like, should I start listening to more guys? Oh, Mel Robbins is really good. I don't know if you listen to her at all. She's awesome.
And read her book. Yeah. Ooh, that reminded me of Lisa Nichols. Lisa Nichols was on The Secret. African American.
Ooh, okay.
So much passion.
Love that. Ooh, I should look into her.
Yeah, Lisa Nichols. She's great. But that's really it. So I was listening to Lisa Nichols, Oprah.
Mm-hmm.
I do listen to Mel Robbins. I forgot about her, and Barbara Cochran are like my top 4.
Yeah. Oh, I love it.
That's not enough because I'm listening to like 22 men, So.
Yeah. Oh, I have another one. Amanda Francis. I'm listening to her book right now. It's about money mindset, right? And that's another thing men do really, really well with is their financial kind of being okay with talking about money and how they bring it in and very comfortable about it, right? For women, or at least for me, I'll speak for myself, like not always that comfortable with it, right? Like how I manage it, like how I feel about it. How do I feel when I have it? Like, do I deserve it? Am I worthy of calling it in? All of that stuff. So her book actually is called Rich as Fuck, and it's really good.
Oh, I love that. I'll probably actually start with that one.
Amanda Francis. Yeah, it's easy too. It's like 6-hour Audible.
Yeah, a lot of the money mindset books, and they've worked, but all by men. And what's so funny is even I laughed. Actually, there was one female. I take that back. It was called How to Be a Rich Bitch.
Ooh, nice.
I don't remember who wrote it, but her picture's on the front. She's very beautiful. But one of my first money mindset books was by David Bachman, I think. And it was it was 4 females. It was a man writing 4 females, which was really cool. But it was so funny how I like gravitated towards a book for females, but it was still written by a man.
Yes, that's crazy. I mean,
so
feelings about that. I mean, I'm all about taking advice, right, from anybody, right, who has the expertise, the knowledge, a good heart, right, somebody who's really trying to help. I'm all about like listening and taking what you want from it, but like I don't know. I'm going to equate it to something that may be a little bit vulgar, but it's like going to a male gynecologist. Yeah. Like he doesn't understand it. Like he doesn't know what it's like to live it. Yeah. For me, that's really hard.
I agree. Definitely. Yeah.
Nice.
But now looking back, I didn't know it back then, but now looking back, I'm like, this is so interesting. Even that is like, I was looking for a book to help with females, but then it's still by a male author. So it's kind of like, I need to maybe do some more digging inside as far as why I'm, I don't want to say attracted because that's not what I mean, but like,
or drawn to, like that's kind of where you're finding what you're finding. Yeah.
Oh, so maybe it's even just the algorithm. I started out that long ago. And now the algorithm is just feeding me men.
Yep. And that's a very, very possible
Yeah.
situation, right?
Yeah.
Like that's another thing that's a whole other, like, I don't know if you watched the Netflix, what is it? The Social Dilemma.
Yeah, I
I think
did.
oh,
Yeah.
it's
No,
like a
I
little bit
watched.
unnerving, right? You're like, I'm not using social media anymore. And I'm like, here we are doing a live stream, but it's fine. But like, no, but yeah, it
Yeah.
definitely has you question, like, okay, like, what information am I getting? Like, am I getting like what? Yeah, I I won't go there.
One thing that I
Very
did
real.
do to just to give myself kudos is I started listening to Women's Impact
Ooh, okay.
by the woman who her and her husband created the Quest bars. They're like
Okay.
billionaires.
Yeah.
Um, but she has the Women's Impact and she brings on women who
Ooh,
have done impactful things in their lives. So that
I
is
love that.
one like podcast that I have been listening to.
Yes, that's a good one.
I give
I'll
myself a
have to do
little
that
pat on the
too.
back. She's great. She's great. I was just listening to one recently about a woman who worked for like the CIA or some shit, but just like a blonde, beautiful powerhouse and
Ooh,
crazy boundaries. And how she got to where she got to as far as like standing on 2 feet and strong and using her voice
mm,
in a male dominated arena.
environment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was definitely really cool.
That's awesome. I mean, I think like okay, so I'll put in your Facebook channel a list of books and things, but I think you need to do that too because you've got some juicy ones. Like I definitely want to
Oh,
dive
that's a
into
good
some of this
idea.
stuff. Yeah,
Yeah, I'll do
I
that.
wanna see more. Yeah, I can easily do it. It's like, oh yeah, because it's just like a brain dump. It's all this stuff that you just know, but like you don't realize it's valuable.
Yes, that's what this whole channel is about. Go through all this shit and you're like, I just went through that shit because that's how I got through my life. But like,
Yeah,
hello, like
there's
that
some
could help.
value there. Yeah, like, thank you for the help, thank you, I'll share that. I'll take it.
Yes, exactly.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I want to ask, one of the biggest issues that I come across with clients is them recognizing that there's an issue. So we have people watching live right now and they're like, cool, Nichole, got it. You were in a little bit of a slump. Now you're out of the slump. Good on you. Um,
Yeah,
my situation's really shitty. I don't even know where to start. I don't even know like the first step I'm supposed to take towards whatever life you're talking about. So I kind of want to ask in your personal experience, through your
mhm,
personal journeys, when you're in
yeah,
kind of like a challenge, what are some things that kind of come up for you that you kind
mhm.
of look back and you're realizing, hey, this is like the first, second, third, or whatever step that I take towards a better mindset. Do you have something like that?
Sure. So, depending upon what you're experiencing and what you're going through, right? Like, if you're obviously really depressed, really anxious, like in a really dark place, it may feel hard, but the first thing you need to call you need to get help. Like I can't like for that, like there needs to be a line, right? You need to call, you need to get yourself out there.
Okay.
Please, like that I think is important, right? So like these steps don't necessarily address that. Like that you may need actual help for, and it's okay to
Yeah.
accept the help, get the help.
Yeah.
Really
Okay.
important.
Okay.
Like Brene Brown talks about it. She's like, the first thing, like shame is so dark. And it's something that people usually, when they're acting out and doing something really, I guess we would frown upon, right? Like drinking heavily, like going out and like just getting blackout drunk and then say cheating, right? And then you're super depressed and anxious that you did that. Really, usually you're acting out of a place of shame or a
Wow.
place of like really darkness, right?
Okay.
The best thing to bring the shame out to the light is to call a friend and talk to them about it. And then and acknowledge, "Oh, I'm experiencing shame. This is shame. This is shame." Right? And shame is not, "I did a bad thing." That's guilt. Shame
Okay.
is, "I'm a bad person." There's a very distinct difference there. So
Yeah.
if you're feeling like really judgment on yourself, so it's like the best thing you need to do, she says, is like call a friend, someone you trust, and talk about it. That's why these stories are so important because it brings the shame out in the light, and shame doesn't live there,
Yeah.
right? It can't live in the darkness. So and that's where a lot of these really bad feelings that like we all try to escape, we all have our mechanisms for doing that, live, right? So inside our minds. So if you get it out, if you tell your story to somebody you trust, or in a forum like this, once you've kind of healed some of the stuff and you can talk about it, do it, put it out there. Because the more you do that, the more it kind of just eradicates it and just gets it out.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I would say, like, yeah, depending on what you're dealing with, I mean, I don't know. And then get curious, right? Like, get curious about yourself, get to know yourself. Like, you know, if there's any inkling, like, you're like, you know what, I kind of like taking pictures, like, go take your iPhone, because everybody has a camera these days, right? Like, on their person, and go walk in your block and take some pictures and see how it feels, right? Like, did you enjoy it? Like, and if you enjoyed it, say, oh, how can I do more of that? Just take
Yeah.
little tiny steps, like little tiny baby steps
Yeah.
towards what you like. If it's dancing, right? If it's writing, like, just, there's so much free stuff out there too. Oh my gosh, to learn, like, you know, Google is incredible, and there's a bunch of people who want to give to you, right? They want to help you.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, first, like, if you're dealing with something dark, you know, or something really heavy, deal with that. But if you're just like trying to get yourself from one place to another, and you're not really sure how, like, you're in a place you're not like really happy, you're not sure how to like start getting happy, it's like, get curious about yourself and what you like, and then start trying to take little mini steps to explore that, whatever that is.
That's great. Awesome.
Hopefully that helps. I don't know if that's simple enough, but
Yes.
it's not like an easy, like 1, 2, 3, but it's like a bunch of stuff that I've used.
Yes, 100%. What do you think is the number one lesson you've learned about life?
The more I grow and learn, the less I know.
The more you grow
and learn, the
and
less I know.
the
The
less-
reason for that is, and it's funny, I think, let me explain that a little more. But if we think about it, right, like, oh God, like, this world, there is just like, I don't know that much, right? Like, I know about photography, sure, like, and there's an ever evolving amount to learn, even in that stratosphere, right?
Yeah.
And I remember being really young and thinking I knew a lot, right? And then the more I've expanded my knowledge, right, about people, places, and things, we'll just keep super basic, the more I've realized there's so much to know.
Yeah.
Like, in this earth, about this planet, about this galaxy we live in, like, there is just so much I don't know. And I think that, you know, the more that I expand, I get to keep expanding and learning and growing into what's possible. Like, that just leaves, there's so much that's possible. So yeah, I would say that, you know.
Definitely. 100%. And it's interesting how much we don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even just if you talk about even just photography, like,
yeah, there's tons to learn, and I love that. I love it, right? I love to dig right into that, right? I'm a member of the Photographers Association of America, and it's amazing because there's all of these other photographers just willing to teach each other what they know about business, about different lenses, about, you know, how to create a certain look or feel in a picture. And there's so much to learn just in that arena alone, right? I mean, we're not even talking about physics or, you know, anything out there that's like, I mean, I can't even think about like some of the stuff that, you know, physicians do every day. Like, no idea. But that's the thing. It's just, there's a huge realm of possibility, right? And I think that just reminds you to, like, there's just so much that's possible. There's so much out there. Like, don't limit yourself, right? Don't like stop yourself from expanding and learning. There's just so much to take in, and there's so much to explore, right? So, like, don't give up. There's tons of options for everybody. Like, there's a lot of possibility for you.
Yeah. And I love how you're saying that, because if we were talking earlier about self-development and how important it is for people to, you know, start figuring themselves out a little bit. It's the same thing. So I just got done saying, like, photography, I don't know anything about photography. Like, I can take a picture on my phone, but like, I don't know anything about lighting or exposure, zero. It's the same thing with personal development. And so we think we know things. Like, I think I know how to take a picture because I have an iPhone. But then there's a whole other world that you're aware of. Yes.
That, exactly, like, my point. Yep.
Understand. So, like, when we're talking about self-development, that's the exact same thing. Like, we're in life right now, so we think, yeah, I got it down. Life, got it.
Yeah. Cool.
But
I'm here.
There's
this whole world. I mean, I was a project manager before I was a photographer. And I was a goal project manager where I worked with people in Australia, in Shanghai, in Barcelona, in Mexico City, right? And the interesting thing about it, right, is like if you look at any single product or thing that you use every day, like where that even came from, right? What it took to get that in front of you, right?
Yeah.
Like I watched that cycle. And I think that showed me how many people, how many experts are needed to do that just for one thing, just for one thing,
Yeah.
right? And it just shows you just this huge realm of this world that we create every day and what's possible and all the things that need to come together just to get us in front of each other, right? And I think for me, it's just a reminder of like the stuff that we take for granted, but like it's also this cool ability to like think about what's possible, right? And like what you can create, what I can create is kind of cool. So I don't know. That's just kind of what brought me to that, I think, conclusion too.
You're
But
so right with that. Like even just think of something as simple as a book. Like the ink,
paper, the ink.
or and then so like the ink doesn't disappear like it does on our grocery receipts. Like it stays there for hundreds of years or like 100 years.
Mhm. How the
And
book is bound,
yeah.
the type of cover, the picture that goes on the cover. How much work just goes into, because I do that, right? I've photographed for the cover of different books.
Yeah.
Like so much just goes into that one piece of that whole
Yeah.
product that's going to be delivered to a person. It's crazy. Yeah, it's incredible, right? It's incredible, but it's also, yeah, it's mind blowing at times.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But it also shows community.
Right, and that we need everybody. We need all the expertise, right? You need it all. So yeah.
Wow, that was great. Absolutely. You know, we were talking earlier about one of my limiting
Yes, limiting
beliefs
beliefs.
that I'm breaking through slowly. I want to talk about your limiting beliefs. Do you have any big ones that you've broken through or that you've acknowledged that you're working on? That you can
Right now, working on money mindset for sure. Money mindset, growth mindset versus a fixed mindset. So it's like instead of saying that this is just who I am and this is what I have and this is just the now and that's just it, saying, no, actually, there's this whole opportunity for me to expand, right? The universe is, as long as I show up and take the actions every day, right? As long as I'm trying and putting, and I say this prayer, right? It's like, help me serve in a way that will light up and serve others so they can grow. Like, so that, like, what I'm doing has a real purpose and it's like shining through. And like, as long as I'm taking the actions towards that, the universe will kind of like work with me, right? And the money will come in, the wealth will come in, what I need will come in, right? Trusting that. That is definitely a limiting belief that I'm trying to work through, right? Like trying to say, like, instead of saying, like, you know what, it's not going to happen for me, or I doubt it. You know what, people don't need my services. People don't want this. People don't want to pay for it, right? They don't want to show up and, it's not needed, right? Those fears, those doubts that we all have, right, from time to time. And if you
yeah.
don't have them, good for you. I have them.
Yeah.
Like it's working against that and showing up and anyway and yeah, working on the beliefs. Like I said, Amanda Francis's book, Rich as Fuck, really good for this. Jensen Sherrill also has a book, You Are a Badass at Making Money. Like
Wow.
working through some of that. Because it all affects your financial reality, your well-being, what you end up creating with your life, like what I end up creating for my life. I don't want it to be limited. So yeah, there's definitely a lot that I'm fighting through, but I'd say that's probably it right now.
That's awesome. So I want to take a moment real fast just to acknowledge the individuals that are hanging out with us here live. Thank you so much for being here, supporting us almost an hour in.
Wow.
Nichole, I know, it's been great. I want to ask, since we're all hanging out here listening, what do you do? I mean, obviously we know you're a photographer, but can you give us a little more substance as to
Oh
who you are,
yeah.
what you do, what the name of your company is, website, what you
Yes, all the juicy stuff. So I am a personal brand and headshot photographer. My niche is female-owned small to mid-sized businesses, and my mission is to really create beautiful photography for these ambitious women so they can worry less about attracting their ideal clients because they have photos that are helping you do that. Um, you know, my whole goal is to help you have photos that make you an energetic match for the clients that you, and ultimately the money that you want to bring into your business, by helping you expand on that know, and trust factor, and becoming more of that likable expert in a consistent, fun, witty, thoughtful, inspiring, whatever you want to feel, whoever you want to be way, right? Because you are your biggest differentiator, right? Your unique beliefs, talents, knowledge, process, approach. And I want to capture that, right? Because it deserves to be promoted. And there's a million places where it could be, right? Like on your podcast cover, on your book cover, in your blog, in your newsletter, and your social media. And that's just the start, right? So, I want your unique message to stand out and resonate with your audience. So if you want to find me, I am at Nichole, Nichole. I got the H in my name, and then MCH photography. So Nichole MCH photography.
I love that. If they wanted to follow you on social media, are all your social media links?
Everything is the same. So it's
Very
Instagram, cool. TikTok, which I'm starting on. I'm still kind of experimenting with. So
TikTok's fun.
It is, right? It can be a lot of fun. I think I've started to get into reels a lot more this year. So there's definitely a lot to grow and learn there, right?
Yes.
A lot of possibility.
Yes, 100%. What does success mean to you?
I think there's this really beautiful quote by Serena Williams, and she says, it's not how many times you fail, it's how many times you get back up and keep going.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so I think that's so important. It's just like, for me, do I get back up? Do I keep going every time? Do I focus on what I'm creating versus what, I don't know, might be going wrong? And having a full life with all the things, not just, having the wealth, right, to feel safe and secure, but also having the relationships that make you feel seen and heard, make me feel seen and heard, and having, living out a purpose. Yeah, feeling like I'm connected to something bigger.
Definitely. Yeah. As far as we have a predominantly female audience.
Yeah.
And a lot of times all of us deal with really finding and living our authentic lives. Yeah. Despite our spouse, despite our parents, despite, employment, money, whatever's getting in the way of that. But people struggle with that. People struggle with, waking up every day and being truthfully who they actually are every day. And we're all struggling with that.
Oh, yeah.
Right. But what would be your advice as far as, if a woman came up to you and she's just like, I'm really having a tough time, really being authentic, really finding out who I am and living that to its fullest. What would be your advice for her?
Ooh, that is such a good question. My advice to somebody who wants to feel more authentic, more like themselves, is to start to get to know yourself and what you like, right? And then try it, right? So it goes back to being curious, right? And try your best not to attach any expectations or judgment to that. I know that's not easy, but yeah, just get curious about what you like and just try it. Just little tiny steps, right? Because the more you do that, the more you will shine, and you'll have an easier ability to attract the people who are excited when you shine brightly doing that thing. Yeah. So I think, just there's so much cool stuff to learn and to play with, and don't be afraid of that. Just kind of embrace it a little more if you can. I know it's not easy, but that would be my best advice. Just get curious. I mean, that's what happened with me in photography, and now it's literally I wake up and I'm so excited that I get to show up for other people this way and show up in the world this way.
That's awesome. That gave me the chills. That's so For those of you that are listening live, thank you for being here. For those of you listening on the replay and made it all the way this way, thank you.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Replay so that we know that you were here and we can shoot you some love. For those of you that want to get in contact with Nichole, her website is right above her face area. And all of her social media and all that goodness is on there. Do you have any closing thoughts before we wrap this one up?
Just thank you for creating a space in this community, for welcoming me to be on and to talk and to ask these questions. Like, this has been a really cool process for me as well, to like ask myself these questions and go through this. So thank you. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yes, of course. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking time out of your day to give back a little bit and share some of your journey and some inspiring thoughts that you have gone through in your life. I really appreciate it. And if without women like you, the podcast wouldn't even exist. So I think also for those of you watching live, thank you so much for being here and joining us on this episode of Her Version with Miss Nichole Howard. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. My name is Sabrina Victoria once again, and if you have an amazing story to share of struggle to triumph, make sure you reach out to me here or at herversion.life. I'm so grateful to be sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth and inspire others. Until next time, do something awesome today. Much love.